at Blizzard a lot.
Yeah.
Helps us run the tournaments and especially the league. But he's also the guy that, I personally dislike soldering. It's just it's not something I enjoy doing. I'm not very good at it, and
We're always a little nervous. We're going to set off the smoke detectors, which apparently goes off in our entire building, like all the units
yeah,
and
so
everything. So it's like
all the other tenants would be very angry with us if
a
we
little
did
high
that.
stress.
But he's always like, something's going wrong. Okay, I'll break out the soldering iron.
Yeah. As soon as he can, he's
Very
like, "Oh, can I get out the soldering?"
gun ho about that. So, but yeah, he's a great guy.
The manual with soldering, as most people soldering, you learn to do it, but it's never like people that are great at it. It's cool to watch it.
Yeah, yeah, it's an art form for sure.
But, yeah, I think I actually bought him that new gun that he has.
Oh, nice.
Soldering iron maybe a year ago.
So,
Yeah.
so we're benefiting from that.
And that was my thing too. It's like, it comes out of you like,
Do you have that game at home too?
Me?
Yep.
No.
Okay. Yeah, we're trying to get a sense of kind of like who has games and what questions they might have about like repairs on those games. And
Well, you have an Adams family that have a string of lights that no matter what I do, I cannot figure it out.
yeah, which lights are they that are?
I'm going to be honest with you, the last time that I opened that machine up was like about 3 years ago.
Yeah, understandable. So if it's a string of lights,
It sounds like general illumination. So, like, be lights under the slingshots or under the other plastics around the playfield that
This is
just
on the playfield.
illuminate them.
If I remember correctly, just like the lights underneath the bumpers, not the, what do we call it?
the slingshots down by the flippers, or they're up.
Or the pop bumpers.
Just on the playfield that when you turn the game on, those stay lit.
Like the inserts.
Insert the
Yeah.
game on.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's under the inserts and you've got lights out there, those are part of the lamp matrix, which there's two different matrices on the machine. There's a switch matrix, which I was talking about earlier, and there's also a lamp matrix. And there's 64 lamps. They're in an 8x8 grid, basically, is how it's laid out. And so the CPU can control 64 individual lamps, but they are daisy chained together. So if there's a break in that chain, there could be up to 8 lamps in one row or 8 lamps in one column that aren't working, and it could just be a broken wire. It could also be on the CPU board, there's a place where those are plugged in, and it could be a wire came out of one of those connectors. And so those are the easy fixes. It might take a little searching to find them, but those would be the easy fixes. If you find that none of the lamps in a particular row or column are working, you can unplug them and wire just using one of these lamps with a couple of wires soldered onto it. You can use that to test, like put this lamp on switch on wire number 2 and wire number 6 on this side, and you've got lamp number 26. You go into test mode and have it light lamp number 26, and it lights up. Then the CPU is okay, and the problem is in the wiring somewhere. If it does not light up, then you've got an issue on the board. Most likely, it's going to be wiring.
I'm gonna blame wiring just for the simple. I fixed a few prior, and I got this, and this was just a beginning.
I was gonna also say, like with Adam's family, or even like with the Pirates, we don't have the Stern Pirates anymore, but it sounds like it would be kind of standard with other Sterns. But if you guys want to come to Blizzard, I'm sure Kevin would open up the game and kind of be like, this is what I'm talking about, is like this section right here, and
Right.
and so if you wanted to kind of see it visually of things to check and everything, that might be easier.
Welcome.
Hello.
I don't make pinball machines, but I thought that this would be good to.
Absolutely.
Do you have?
No, I don't have any pinball machines.
Are there any that you would like?
Love them though.
Are there
I've
any
been
that-
to Blizzard, so.
Oh, great. Yeah. Do you have an interest in getting a game at some point?
Someday when I have a bigger house.
Yeah,
And
understandable.
more money.
You guys were in that boat too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep talking about with my housemates, like maybe getting a machine or something, but probably gonna be a while into the future.
I've known a few people who are trying to convince their roommates of like,
Yeah, right.
come on.
Luckily, he loves pinball too, so
That's good. That's helpful.
he's around here
And
somewhere.
sometimes they're trying to convince their roommates to get one. Sometimes they're trying to convince their roommates to add on to the collection that they already
Yeah.
got. Yeah, we already have 6. 7 more. 7 is fine.
I feel like that happens a lot. That's how we ended
That's
up
how
with
we end up with
so
38
many.
of them.
And that's how you open an arcade, because you need a place to put them all. I was gonna say, I mean, whether you already have a game or thinking about getting a game, if you take one of these handouts, it has just kind of a rundown of like basic tools that you probably want to have on hand, basic parts that are gonna be like the most common things that you'll need to fix and switch out, and then just kind of general ideas about how to go about fixing them, and then our cleaning supplies. Do you want to show our fancy cleaning supplies? Which Ashley and Sarah can also answer any questions you have about cleaning.
So what is this for?
I'm not drinking.
What did you say?
Almost everything.
Everything, yes. I thought you said it's not for anything, like I was doing a trick question.
Is that good?
Yeah, don't drink this.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I get a picture of the sheet you have?
Oh yeah. Oh, actually,
There's a bunch of them up
on that
there.
chair back there. If you just want to grab one, absolutely.
Is that how you guys open up your shop? You had a bunch of pinball machines, you're like, you gotta find a place to store them.
It's more that we had a bunch of pinball machines and they weren't getting used.
Yeah.
And we really wanted people to be able to enjoy them. And
That's part of why we have like loved coming to the show every year. It was kind of like this was the big weekend, and oh, we get to see everybody enjoying our games. And then then they would just go back into the basement, and it's like, well, we'd play them sometimes. The kids would play them sometimes, and
we also live up in Conifer, so it's
Yeah.
not like a walkable community.
Yeah.
You have to get in your car to drive anywhere.
Mhm.
And so, there's not a lot of, well, let's go over to Joe's house and, hang
Yeah.
out with them. It's just,
Yeah. So they just did kind of sit around and play for quite a while, or a lot of their lives. And so then, but we had been collecting them through the years, and and always having to kind of like sell one to make room to get another one, and kind of limited by how much
which is
room.
why we sold
we have.
Twilight Zone, and I'm still sad
I know.
about that.
Almost all the ones we've sold, I'm like, oh, I missed that one. and, but then, I think Kevin had been working at his job as a computer programmer for like 20 years.
Yeah, it's 20 years.
Yeah, and was just kind of getting pretty burnt out about that, and I'm a therapist, and he had supported me in like going into private practice and doing my own thing. So we're two kind of unlikely entrepreneurs, since we're both so introverted and risk averse and everything. But
Seeing a bunch of people scares me half to death. So
Yeah.
even this group, and nobody here seemes very threatening.
Yeah.
But it's still, makes me a little nervous.
I know the feeling when you get into a room.
Yeah.
You love the pinball tables, but you're like.
I've discovered for myself, that's part of what I really like about pinball, like in playing in the like bells and chimes and everything, is that like I can go and kind of socialize with people, and then once I start feeling that like I'm getting anxious at talking with everybody, then I can just like go on a game, and I'm in my own little world, and then I can kind of come back out and socialize a little bit. So it's a good combination. But yeah, so then it was a lot harder than one might think to find a place to operate once we decided that we were going to make the leap. Because one thing we realized is that like there's a lot of so some cities have laws on the books that they do not want arcades, and some even like shopping complexes, like if it's a Kroger shopping complex, they don't want kind of like undesirable types of businesses operating in their
Even things
complex.
like, so I used to work for Boston Market. That was the company I worked for 20 some odd years. And
Which is how he learned to program our point of sales at Blizzard.
right, 'cause that was what I did. So we worked on all the in-store processes, computer processes. So at any rate, we discovered that King Soopers if there's a King, if it's anchored by a King Soopers, they have stuff in their lease that says, no arcades, and not even Boston Market because it would compete with their deli, and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, the arcades is kind of interesting because I don't know if it's that they think it's undesirable, or if back in the 80s when they were creating these leases, they had the games in their stores, and they did not want competition for that. I'm not sure which that was, but
Had friends that were operators back in the 80s and ran pretty decent size arcades. He said that's always what it was, right? Like the Circle K would have, floor machines and they didn't want it to be competing with the regular. That's back when they were actually doing stuff.
Right. And so those things are still there. I mean, all these years later, the King Soopers that's near us opened in like 2007 or whatever, and it's still like we couldn't be in that complex.
Like the one right next door, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like, that's okay, we'll just go right here. Well, even we had looked at the complex that we're in, we had looked there originally because we really liked the idea of being there, and had started talking with that landlord and everything, and I think he was kind of like, I think thinking we were going to have all this riffraff, and so he was like, if there's any damage anywhere on the property, you guys will have to be liable for it. And I was like, how can you prove it's a pinball, or if somebody graffitied something on the other side of the complex or something? And so
it says line man.
well, then that's probably fair. But I think we looked for like 2 years, and we looked down in town, and we looked in Conifer, and
the other thing that we found is having an unincorporated area was important, because not only were the cities usually had more regulations and stuff as far as what they wanted and didn't want, but sales tax was a lot higher.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to sell a machine, we'd have to, we have to charge sales tax whenever we sell a machine. Up where we are, it's 4.5%. If we were in Denver, it'd be like 8.5%, and that makes a difference. So just little stuff like that.
Some of the cities also
have a per machine fee,
like a per machine per year fee to operate a coin operated machine or something. So
we're card operated, so we can probably scoot around that.
I don't know. But yeah, luckily unincorporated Jeffco is pretty easy to work with, and if anything, they were super helpful to us during COVID, because we had to be shut down for so long, and they really helped us with a lot of grant money, and so we were able to survive.
It's the only reason we were able to survive, because the landlord still expected us to pay rent even though we could not be open.
Yeah.
So that would have been a problem very quickly.
Yeah.
And rent is not cheap.
No. That's the other thing with when people talk about opening an arcade, it's kind of like, we definitely understand why like most arcades are barcades, because like to get enough from coin drop to cover rent, and you need a large space to hold all these big machines. It's a lot. So that's the other thing, is we get a lot of questions about like, how come you don't hire somebody? And it's like, there's no way we can pay somebody even minimum wage.
I'm not even making minimum wage myself. So
it is a labor of love.
It is a labor of love.
But still really worth it. Trying to think of what else. Do you guys have other questions about running an arcade, or
anything else you'd like to talk about? We have about 14 minutes left, so.
And 46 seconds. Do you guys have games at home?
No, I make toys to go on games.
Oh, you're talking next.
Yes, I'm talking next.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So if you ever want to modify your games, that's what I do.
That's very cool.
I have some stuff in there too.
Is it in the main room?
Yeah, it's right next to pub time. No.
The pinball pub?
Showdown pub?
The pinball pub, I
Yes,
think.
pinball
Yeah.
pub.
I think, wasn't that the...
Are you the SFX?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
was going to say, that was the booth that you went up to.
It was closed, and
Yeah.
and I was curious what it was. So
Yeah. I have evil. Anybody from Disney?
no,
I have evil Grogu's.
Oh, nice.
For the Mando game.
Nice.
It must be, I'm from Disney.
They're evil space babies.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, it is really fun too, just like
Yeah.
doing little mods on the games and
Yeah. There's a gentleman who has a Sopranos game,
Mhm.
and his strippers lost legs. So he came to
Oh,
talk yesterday
no.
about getting new legs for strippers,
yeah,
or even we're thinking about maybe changing how they look.
right.
Like, because right now they just look like they're hanging there like on a flag.
Right.
Right? I'm like, well, I can make them look more like strippers.
Right.
We can do something sexy on them.
Right.
We're gonna do it.
Might as well.
I remember playing the Sopranos. I remember playing the Sopranos where one of the strippers, the head was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just swinging around the pole with no head.
Right. He was saying that.
So the mob off that one, you know, said the wrong thing.
Yes.
When it's never been about the head, I'm just.
I know, that's true. And you give her biggie boobs, booty, whatever.
It's like a Halloween thing like zombie stripper.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know, Universal Studios, I used to work there. They did a creepy clown setup one year that I was there, and I thought, okay, cool, creepy clowns all over. In the front of Universal Studios, they had stripper evil
Oh,
creepy
no.
clowns, right? So they had the stripper outfits with the bad makeup on,
Oh,
and
man.
the pigtails, and they're dancing in the go-go things. I was like, well, this is different.
But it gives you ideas.
It does.
Yeah. I guess that's a good point about like I guess one thing we found with the games is if there's something that is a unique piece to a game, like for example on our Aerosmith, the Jester head, Jackie's head flew off one day, and those are incredibly expensive to replace if it's kind of like specific to a certain game. I'm trying to remember other ones where we've like
Well,
kind of struggled to
We had
find.
an issue with the Hobbit when we had
Yeah.
a Jersey Jack's Hobbit where there's 4 pop-ups,
Mhm.
and one of
Like the
them,
medieval madness rolls.
right, and I've had more trouble with those pop-ups than anything else on the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the mechanism is way over-engineered, and it weighs a ton. Whereas the pop-ups on Medieval Madness have given me problem-free service for 40,000 games, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And these I'm having trouble every couple thousand.
Mhm.
But one of the heads broke off of one of the characters, and so I called up Jersey Jack and was like, I need another wolf head or whatever it was.
Mhm.
Well, we don't have any.
Mhm.
What do you mean you don't have any? Got a Hobbit machine, I need
Yeah.
wolf head. You know, I can't just not have it. Well, let me check with the warehouse and maybe they can find another one there. And so they actually did check with the warehouse and they found another set of all 4 of the character heads. It's like, great, send it to me. And they did.
Were they expensive?
Not terribly.
That's good.
Sometimes
they are.
Yeah,
No, I mean, that part was fine. And
but it was
you know,
kind of like if you break these, you're really out of
now,
luck.
but I sold the game after that because, and it was one of our better games as far as earnings, but I was concerned that at some point it was going to break and I was not going to be able to get a replacement part for it, and then I would have this game that, like,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah,
Now you can call?
yeah, true.
Well, we don't have it anymore, so
No, I mean any game.
Yeah,
Any game.
we'll definitely grab one of your
we'll
cards.
grab one of your cards.
Yeah.
That was what part of my career before the pinball
Mhm.
was fixing certain pieces at a theater. So
Okay.
the kids would hang on like horse mouths, right? There was a concrete horse. They would hang on the mouth and the horse mouth would break off.
Right.
So it was my job to it's concrete.
That makes total sense.
Seriously?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm really good at
So fabricating that kind
Engineering.
of stuff,
Yeah.
repair, color match, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, because that is something with those sorts of pieces, and then also, like when we sold Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was one of my favorites to play. I love that multi-ball, and so it was sad to see it go. But there's a kind of a known issue with the node.
like node boards, and our Ghostbusters has the same thing. The early games, the node boards, they don't fail very much. We've actually never, knock on wood, never had a failure. But if it did fail, you can't get them. And some cases you might be able to get them refurbished if, you know, depending on what fails on it. But it was a little spooky that, you know, it's like if this fails and the newer ones on the newer games aren't compatible with the older ones, so you can't just, you know, it'd be nice if they had made it backwards compatible so that you could just, you know, not worry about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all these newer games, they all seem to have those, is that what you're talking about, the boards that they have all throughout the game?
Yeah, the under the play field. Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I was actually kind of wondering if you'd had experience with something failing, and you kind of answered the question. I assumed I could call Stern and be like, oh, I need this, and they'd have it, but that's not really the case.
Well, it depends on the era of the game. So the newer games, it's not going to be an issue because those are all, and there's tons of them. I mean, Deadpool and Aerosmith and all of those, they all use the same or at least compatible boards as far as I know. But the first few Spike games that they came out with, Game of Thrones, Ghostbusters, Kiss, I believe, is in there. And maybe Aerosmith, I don't know. Aerosmith might actually be one of those. They use like the version 1 of those boards, and that's where the problem is. But like the newer games, they've made so many of them that I would imagine that they'll have replacement parts. And to be fair, we've never had an issue with the node boards.
Yeah.
It was just a concern that I didn't want it to turn into a brick.
Yeah.
So
Preemptively, we thought like having it
And in a
someone's home
in a home environment, again, you know, it doesn't get nearly the play as it does
in an arcade.
in an arcade. So it's just not as likely to be an issue.
Yeah.
So we have a few minutes left. Looks like we have about 7 minutes left. I have a bunch of parts strewn out in front of me. Stuff like flipper bats.
Well,
So
yeah.
this was kind of a surprising one. I just happened to come across this. Came from Fishtails. I was doing a fix on Fishtails, and I noticed that, well, it seems a little cracked at the top here, but you can't. You know, it looked okay, and everything still seemed okay with it. But it's like, well, I better take a closer look at it, and I kind of pulled on it, and it just came right off.
Like, yeah, that's not supposed to happen.
Oh. I guess it's broken. So, sometimes damage can be hidden.
Is that
This
under warranty still, Fishtails?
no, this was not under warranty.
There is a Williams phone number that scrolls across into the feed, so we haven't tried calling it.
And then you run into issue. I don't know if you can see this very well, but you know, the flipper bat is cracked, and sometimes it's like this one's cracked on the edge here. It's also cracked internally, and what happens is this flipper is just not as rigid as, you know, an intact flipper would be, and so your shots are a little weaker, or they might not be as accurate. And so whenever I pull a flipper off, I'm always checking the inside to see if it's cracked or not. If it is cracked, I just replace it. And then you get the more obvious ones.
Yeah.
This was actually from F-14, which, if you guys know F-14, it has a kicker, so you shoot basically the left orbit, and it has a kicker that rockets the ball back at you, and this is the flipper that ball hits.
Yeah.
And it snapped the flipper.
Gave up eventually.
But these are all common parts, so these are not an issue to replace. This is a flipper mechanism that's, you know, I just built it with new parts, but a used plate and a used flipper bat here. But this is basically how it works. And, you know, it activates the coil, which pulls the plunger in, which activates the rest of the flipper mechanism. So none of it is really rocket science for those of you that don't currently have machines. It's all pretty straightforward stuff, but it can be a little complicated to get to it sometimes. You might have to take apart various levels. Usually flippers are just right out there in the open. Again, like we discussed before, you don't want to do this with the power on. Two things could happen. Either you could accidentally touch 70 volts and shock yourself, which would cause you to, you know, jerk your hand back, and you might hit something else and cause collateral damage. Or you might accidentally short the 70 volts to the 5-volt switch matrix and blow stuff up that way. Either way, you're going to cause more work for yourself than you really wanted to do. So usually best, unless you need to actually troubleshoot something, it's usually best to just have the power off. Any other questions or anything that we can address in the last 3 or 4 minutes that we have.
Have you guys ever built your own games?
So our son has kind of dabbled in that. It's not something I've ever really been that interested in. I'm not an artist. I'm just not. And so, mine would have, the flippers would just not be aligned right. It would never look right.
It takes a lot of geometry, right?
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, I think he, through school and everything, had access to like some CAD kind of software and was designing it. And then we found a place downtown that did kind of like do your own woodwork sort of stuff with like their tools. And but they had a CNC machine, I think is what it's called.
Right.
And so he had to like give them his or like email, this is what I want, and then they procured the kind of wood, and you had to find like the right thickness and everything, and the right kind of density to it. And luckily, there's lots of information out there on the internet about these things, and so it was fun to go pick it up and kind of be like, oh, like it's a play field. And so yeah, he tinkers with it. Now he just started college. Not really. I mean, he also got a cabinet that one of our friends just had an empty cabinet, and so he bought that from him, and so the playfield can go into the cabinet. But yeah, he just kind of like has very slowly been putting pieces on it, and
now he's away at college. So.
Yes.
Oh, it's
So,
the freaking sunny.
I think it will sit there for a while. But he got boards for Christmas that he was programming somehow. I don't really.
To flip the machine.
Oh. Did it flip?
Yeah,
Okay.
it did flip.
So yeah, it's the junk pile in the basement. But
I have a lot of those.
yeah. So maybe someday, but yeah, it seems like quite an undertaking.
Yeah, I've been in the factories and I've seen how they make them.
Yeah.
But it just, that part, because I am an artist, like
Mhm.
the art part, I got that
Yeah.
in spades.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to figure out how the wiring
Yes.
and all the alignments go, and the ramps have to be a certain way, because if the ball goes too fast, you get flippers that break off.
Right.
And, if you have a certain gap here, the ball will get stuck, people get mad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I won't, no, I'm just,
That's the thing about like one person building a game. Someplace like Stern where you've got like, okay, here are our mechanical engineers, and here are our
Right.
artists, and here are our designers, but yeah, to be one person covering all those bases
Yeah.
seems really like a
You have to be
unique
a
set of
polymath.
skills. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you all for
Yeah.
coming in. This might be the most well attended one that we've had.
I think it might be. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
If you guys think of questions later on, you can always, we'll be wearing our Blizzard shirts this weekend, so just look
Of course, there's a
around.
lot of other Blizzard shirts
Well,
out
that's
there
true,
too.
but now you know us, so. Or you have known us, so.
But yeah, you can also, is our contact information on there? I don't think it is. Okay.
BlizzardPinball.com.
BlizzardPinball.com. Yeah, you can come up and visit us, and if you have anything you want to run past us, we'd be happy to do so. So.
Yeah, Kevin frequently talks pinball repairs with people who come in, so I'm always happy
Yeah.
to do that.
I don't actually do in-home repairs anymore. I used to do that. It's just not something that I enjoy doing. But I
Well,
do.
'cause inevitably, it's like you get there and it's like, oh, it's not the problem I thought it was, and it needs this part that
Right.
we need to order.
And I don't have the part. I don't have the tool. I left the tool at the shop.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. So, but I do work on machines that people bring to me because I have everything that I need there. So I will do that from time to time. No promises that would be handled quickly because
Yes.
I have my own machines to work on as well. But in my
As you
spare
guys
time.
know from seeing the games in the party room for forever, but
What's a rough turnaround time on doing just a full LED change from condensing to LEDs and that kind of whirlwind?
I mean, it varies tremendously. It depends on what I have going on at the time.
do you mean like for him to do it, or for like if you did it at home, or?
No, for him to do it.
Oh yeah.
So if I did it, I mean, the work itself is probably 2 or 3 hours to get in and replace all of the bulbs. Plus, the cost of the bulbs themselves, $1.50 a bulb, depending on what it is that you're doing. To get to it, it just depends on what else I have in the pipeline. If I don't have a lot in the pipeline, I could probably do it fairly quickly. But if I've got 3 other games there, then it might take a couple months. I mean, it just depends.
When you were doing those in-home service calls, do you have a most memorable, for whatever reason, one of those adventures?
To find a cat inside.
Nothing weird like that.
That's
Nothing. It's on the roof. No, nothing crazy like that. Really, it was all pretty straightforward. It's mostly that I just didn't feel like I could provide the service for the price I would need to charge, provide the service that was worthwhile. Because I'd have to charge, $100 to go out and come back, and then I'd have to make a second trip because I wouldn't have everything I needed. So, do I charge that, or is it not their fault that I don't have what? No, just bring the game to me. And I know that's inconvenient. I know it's not like just bring it to me, but really, I can provide a lot better service that way. So,
if you get one of those, it should be a quick 5-minute fix, but it's all can of worms and other things.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd rather people not watch me make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because I can turn a 5-minute project into a can of worms very easily, and I'd rather people not know that. So. Well, thank you all for coming. I don't want to back up into the next thing, but I appreciate it.
Thank you.